was I going to Manchester all those years? If I'd only known everything that was here in Saratoga, there was no reason for me to go there. And I could have come here, and I could have gone up to the Adirondacks to hike, and I could have gone to Lake George now that I know what that is. And I could have gone to SPAC, and I could have gone to Cafe Lena, and I could have done all these things, but I didn't know about it. And once I started to understand everything that was here, I thought, there literally is no place on earth like this.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
Saratoga Springs brought Elizabeth Sobol out of retirement. Love that.
Welcome to the Destination Saratoga All Access Podcast, brought to you by Discover Saratoga. And here is your host, Mackenzie Zarzicki.
This podcast takes you behind the scenes with the people shaping Saratoga County's vibrant culture, rich history, and thriving community. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Elizabeth Sobol, CEO of Saratoga Performing Arts Center, better known as SPAC. Under her leadership, SPAC has transformed from a beloved summer venue into a dynamic year-round cultural powerhouse. We talked about how SPAC's impact extends well beyond the amphitheater, from education programs that inspire the next generation to beautifully curated programming that blends tradition with innovation. We also explored SPAC's growing role in driving cultural tourism and shaping Saratoga's identity as a premier destination for the arts. This intimate conversation with Elizabeth shines light on how SPAC's influence reaches not only its audiences, but the entire Saratoga community. Cue the conversation. This episode is sponsored by Finney Design Group. We're back here, Destination Saratoga All Access Podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie Zarzicki, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Elizabeth Sobol of SPAC.
Yay. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
I am so happy to have you here. You are such an icon in the Saratoga community, and I'm just honored to be here with you today.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So you're the CEO of Saratoga Performing Arts Center. How long have you been there?
So I started in October of 2016. So I'm going into my 9th summer at SPAC.
That's crazy. Does it feel like it's been 9 years?
Sometimes it feels like an eternity, and sometimes it feels like the snap of a finger.
Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I will be at Discover Saratoga for 6 years in September.
Oh, wow.
And once you have kids and stuff, it's like you lose complete track of time. But yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I don't have kids, but I lose track of time anyway, because I feel like there's so many children, whether it's like the staff or the board or the ticket buyers or just everything.
So you have a lot of children.
I have a lot of children.
Just not biological, but they're still your babies.
I can let them go, though.
I love that. How has the organization evolved since you've been at the helm?
Wow. I think first and foremost is how we see each other and see the organization. So when I first came to SPAC in 2016, it had blown me away just how beautifully the art and the artists inhabited this incredible natural space.
Yeah.
You know, who knew that we were sitting in the midst of 2,400 acres of pristine, gorgeous New York State parkland with curative mineral springs all around? I had no idea before I moved up here. So we really started seeing ourselves as, I like to say, the perfect confluence of human-made and natural beauty.
Yeah.
So that was a change. That was really a shift in how we saw each other or saw the organization. A real change in how we saw the organization. And we were no longer so fixated on these couple of weeks in the summer and what happened on the amphitheater stage. But we started seeing the organization as this year-round organization that, yes, served art, yes, served artists, but also served the community.
Absolutely.
So that shift in philosophy has really shaped a lot of what we've done in terms of the programming we do. The education department, that's one of the biggest changes. That when I got to SPAC in 2016, we were serving about 5,000 students in Saratoga, and now the education program has grown so exponentially. We now serve over 50,000 individuals throughout the capital region.
That is a huge number.
It's a huge number, and we take art out into communities, all 8 counties of the capital region, up into the North Country. We partner with over 120 other not-for-profits to bring art into children's and adults' lives. And then in fall of 2021, we opened the SPAC School of the Arts. So that in and of itself has just been a massive shift in how we see each other, how we see the community, how we see SPAC as an organization. And then the last thing I'll mention in this kind of, thinking about who SPAC is, people thought of SPAC as the summer place to be, Saratoga summer place to be, but in fact, we are now 12-month-a-year organization. We are presenting 365 days a year. We've expanded the definition of the arts. It used to be music and dance on the amphitheater stage. Now we're culinary, visual arts, healing arts, literary arts, anything that has to do with like beauty, creating beauty in the world. That's where you're going to find us.
That's amazing. You can definitely see how SPAC has evolved over the last few years, and I think you are very responsible for that. So congratulations, kudos to you. Like I said, you guys are such an important part of the community, and it's so nice to be able to go there more than just the summer. I love your events. We were just talking about spectacular. It's such a beautiful, beautiful event, and the fact that you get to go on stage, it's very unique.
Yeah, it's when I first moved up here and in the first couple of months that I was here, I should mention, and we can talk about this later in our conversation today, but I had never been to Saratoga before until I came up to interview here.
I wanted to ask you about what that experience was like.
Well, and it was incredible. So I had worked in the arts and entertainment industry in New York City for literally decades. And I had run a talent agency for IMG Art. It was IMG Artists. I had run for IMG for many decades. And then I went and ran a record label for Universal Music Group. And I was in the process of retiring. My husband and I had bought an apartment in Miami Beach right at the ocean. And I was ready to retire after many decades of exciting but brutally exhausting work.
Yeah.
And about 4 days into my so-called retirement, I got a call from a search firm saying, we're doing the search for the new head of SPAC and your name keeps coming up. And I said, with not a small amount of attitude, I will confess now, let me go out on my balcony here and describe the view of the ocean from my balcony, and you're going to tell me why the hell I would ever move to upstate New York. Now, I am so embarrassed to tell that story these days because when I moved here in fall of 16, I fell utterly in love with the city, and I can't ever imagine living anyplace else. Yeah. But I didn't know what was here.
Yeah.
And that's what has spurred a lot of the cultural tourism activity that we've been involved in, because I want the world to know what an incomparable destination this place is. You can come up here, hear world-class music, see world-class ballet, world-class horse racing, world-class historic preservation and literary scene and academic scene and art scene. There's nothing like this place. There really is not. And so I'm a real missionary for what Saratoga represents.
You explained Saratoga so beautifully. And you're right, it is so unique. And with your experience, New York City, Miami, driving through the Avenue of the Pines and going to a show as SPAC is probably nothing like where you've been, city-wise.
No, as a matter of fact, I think that was one of the biggest, we're talking about how SPAC has changed, but I think about how I personally have changed since moving here and since running this organization. I mean, first and foremost, I had always run big for-profit companies. That was a different kind of ethos or lack thereof, and to come here and be working at an organization that serves the community in so many ways has just been an honor and a privilege. And but when I think about the actual concert-going experience, when I was working in New York City, my office, when I was at IMG Artists, or even when I was at Universal, we were right near Carnegie Hall. At IMG, I was literally in Carnegie Towers, right next door to Carnegie Hall. So I would finish my work of the day, run out the door at maybe 7:10, try to grab a bite, grab a drink, and then be in my seat at Carnegie Hall at 5 to 8.
Oh, wow.
And then my artists would come out to perform. And I found over the last couple of years that I was there that I wasn't really enjoying the music. I was stressed. I was preoccupied. I was distracted because I never allowed myself that
slow down.
Pocket of time to kind of shift from business mind, monkey mind into receptivity and openness, right? So to your point, that drive down the Avenue of the Pines, I really feel is almost like this kind of portal into a different kind of experience. It prepares you, you know?
Absolutely.
So I think the SPAC listening experience is so unique in that way.
It really is. Now, here's a quick message from our sponsor. Finney Design Group is a multidisciplinary architecture, interior design, green building consulting, and construction management firm with a focus on sustainable and environmentally responsible construction methods. The group is headquartered in a sustainable green building located on the corner of Beekman Street and Grand Ave in the historic Dublin neighborhood of Saratoga Springs. Also known as the Beekman Street Arts District, they're actually located right above the local, one of my favorite Irish pubs or taverns in Saratoga Springs. From architecture to interior design, landscape design to land use analysis, urban planning to rural planning, Finney Design Group has a long and accomplished track record of coordinating projects from the design phase through completion and construction, all while maintaining environmentally friendly standards. There's something so healing about being in nature, taking in the arts. You really can get that moment to slow down in this crazy, fast-paced world we live in.
Totally. I'm so glad you mentioned that because, you know, the healing quality of what we do day in and day out is on our minds all the time. And I think if you're a person who spends time in nature, which I've always been a big hiker and gardener and obviously always loved music, but when you're here at SPAC and even like working in the offices where you're in the middle of the park, you are around all of that nature all the time. And then you're hearing these incredible performances and everything. And I'm so excited that, you know intuitively how much better you feel after a long hike, right? Or you know how much better you feel after a beautiful, beautiful performance. But now there's so much science coming out now about the actual brain chemistry of what's happening when you are having these experiences. Yeah. That's incredible.
It really is.
It's life-changing.
One of my favorite things to do in the summer is we pick up lunch at like Putnam Market and go sit in the park and just look at the architecture, listen to the birds, take your shoes off, walk in the grass. It really is like a mental reset because Monday through Friday, it's just hustle and bustle, go, go, go. And when you have a moment to just sit and take it all in, it's so rewarding. It's unlike no other.
Yeah, it is truly healing. And I think that people, there is something about like, how you feel, but having that sort of imprimatur of like scientists saying, this is what's happening in your brain when you're in nature, or when you're in the presence of great beauty, whether it's human-made or natural.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're so fortunate. How would you describe the role that arts and culture play in attracting visitors to Saratoga County?
So I'm going to get specific because I'm thinking about SPAC. I think that if you're talking about tourism to Saratoga County, I think that there's no question that the fact that SPAC presents, the greatest ballet company in the world, the New York City Ballet, is here in Saratoga in that beautiful natural location, right? Yeah. And there is literally no place in the world where City Ballet have come year after year after year consecutively this will be their 59th season.
59th, wow.
Yeah, and it's also the only place in the world where they come every year with the full company of dancers and the live orchestra. That doesn't happen any place else in the world.
That's amazing.
So I would say that, like, to people who are considering, arts lovers who are considering coming to Saratoga, that this is the only place in the world you can come year after year and see the brilliance and the splendor of New York City Ballet in this environment every single year with the full orchestra.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Philadelphia Orchestra. No place else in the world that they come every year for 3 weeks doing 12 completely different programs. It's unheard of.
That is.
So just from a cultural tourism point of view, it's utterly unique to be able to come up here and hear and see what goes on the SPAC stage. And then that's not even to mention, the incredible list of artists for Jazz Fest or the incredible list of artists that Live Nation present over the course of the summer. It's truly extraordinary.
Yeah. Let's talk about Jazz Fest. What artists are coming? Who are you most excited about? Can you tell us a little bit about Jazz Fest?
Sure. I think that I have to start by just talking about what an incredibly unique event it is. I mean, first of all, 2 full days over the weekend, 2 stages, as you know, the gorgeous 5,200-seat amphitheater, the beautiful lawn, and then the Discovery stage. So you can kind of go back and forth during both days from late morning until evening and hearing artists like Gary Clark Jr. or Trombone Shorty, who are some of our headliners. Or for people who love like really classic jazz vocalists, Gregory Porter, Cassandra Wilson. And for the younger crowd, artists like Lettuce or Corey Wong or DJ Logic. I mean, it's really a festival for everybody. So, and it's not just the music. We have tons and tons of artisans and artists, displaying and selling their wares, great food coming from all over. It's just an amazing feeling to be out on that lawn with thousands and thousands of people just really reveling in and relishing what's going on the grounds.
Now, here's a quick message from our sponsor. I want to take a moment to talk about the Coat Room, Saratoga's best-kept secret and speakeasy. Tucked away on Broadway, the Coat Room brings a cozy, intimate vibe with handcrafted cocktails, gourmet bites, and top-notch service. Whether you're unwinding after a long day or just starting for a big night out, this is your invitation to step back in time and dine in style. Hosting a celebration or special gathering, the Coat Room is also available for private events. No password needed, just follow the coats. For hours, menus, and upcoming events, visit thecoatroom.com.
And I do have to give a shout out to our brand new corporate sponsor, which is GE Vernova, who have come on with a 5-year deal to support Jazz Fest.
That's great.
I give a shout out because not only have they been generous, and it's such a gift for us to know that we've got a sponsor for the next 5 years, but they have obviously, GE is Capital Region, and the fact that they believe in this festival, believe in what happens here in the Capital Region is so important. So we're really proud to be rolling out this sponsorship for them this year.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm so happy for you guys. So going back to tourism, how do partnerships with organizations like Discover Saratoga help expand SPAC's reach and impact?
Yeah, that is such a great question. I have to just say that when I moved up here, after all those years of very competitive, being at very competitive organizations, to come to a city like Saratoga where Discover, the Chamber, the mayor himself, the city, this is the most collaborative, amazing city I have ever lived in. The idea that Discover Saratoga would be like sitting down with us to figure out how do we get the message out. Everybody's always thinking about, well, I've got this writer coming, I've got this publication. How can we create an itinerary for that writer that's going to benefit the whole art scene, the restaurant scene, the hotel scene? Like, who has ever lived in a city where that kind of cooperation and collaboration. So I think that all of us together, recognizing the very unique and special qualities the city has and working together to message that to our individual constituencies, and then also working together to broaden those concentric circles for the city. It's just really astounding.
It is. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I just interviewed Daryl and Greg Connors from SEDC, and they said the same thing. Everyone is so friendly and so collaborative. Yeah. And it's just so nice to hear. We know if any one of us has this crazy idea, we're all going to jump in and say, how can I help?
Oh my God, you're so right. I like literally the number of times that has happened where I'm thinking, well, what about this? And I'm so glad that you mentioned Greg Connors because he is such an incredible colleague as well. Daryl and Greg are just some of the best. And I am thinking particularly about SEDC because, of course, they're tasked with bringing new business to the community. And, I was talking a little bit ago about how SPAC is a cultural tourist beacon. But it's not just about tourism, because frankly, when people are looking to relocate to another city or another region, the prevalence of the arts is a big factor in that. There's a ton of data on that. And I think that when people are looking to come here, even if they're not necessarily orchestra lovers themselves or whatever, the very presence of world-class arts, world-class literature, world-class culinary events, world-class everything here, I think people are really astonished to see the level of all of that exists here in the city of 28,000.
Yeah.
Really.
And you can speak firsthand as a transplant to Saratoga.
I sure can.
I love that. Yeah, we did talk a lot about that. I mean, Saratoga is so like, I don't know how else to explain it. We have visitors come, we have writers come, and a lot of times they return, whether it's for a vacation or a business trip or they relocate. That's probably the biggest compliment I think we can get as a community, is when someone decides to move here, to bring their family here, to raise their children here. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And I think about how the circle of SPAC devotees and donors has happened. Some people that we've welcomed who've come up here. One couple both of whom had worked for the New York Times, others who had worked in the restaurant business or whatever, just were attracted to Saratoga by some of the things that SPAC was doing.
Yeah.
And we're like, we had our eyes on another region or another city, but we came here and we had this incredible dinner and we went to this incredible bookstore and we went to this concert at SPAC and then we went to an art exhibit at the Tang and everything. It's like, how many places can you do all of that in?
Totally.
Yeah, and not to mention just the quality of life here as somebody who lives in Saratoga.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So we talked a little bit about Jazz Festival. We touched on the ballet and the orchestra, but there's a lot of excitement this summer at SPAC. Is there anything else you can share with us or give the audience a preview of what to look forward to this year?
Sure. I mean, New York City Ballet coming up here is always a huge deal. This is such a dance crazy city to begin with, and they have such a long history here. I'm really always excited when, for instance, we're presenting Coppelia this summer, which a lot of people may or may not know that Coppelia was actually commissioned by SPAC, and it was premiered in Saratoga in 1974.
That's so
cool.
If
on top of just the connection it's got to the city and the wonderful story and the wonderful music and everything, it also involves a lot of Saratoga kids.
Okay.
So to have kids who come and audition to perform in this work,
that's awesome.
to have them on stage, have their families come, it's really extraordinary. And then the mixed rep program that we have, Balanchine, of course. How can you have New York City Ballet without Balanchine? Robbins, obviously, connection with New York City Ballet, very iconic. And then Justin Peck, who is sort of the younger generation of those iconic choreographers, and he's got a new work that he's doing. Well, it'll be new for SPAC when he brings it up here. So that's always cause for celebration and excitement to see that. And then I will mention that closing night, which is July 12th, we're going to have an after party outside with live Cuban music, so people can come out of the amphitheater, up the hill, and do Cuban dancing afterwards. July 12th.
So I have a 4-year-old daughter. Yes. She loves dance. We haven't been to the ballet yet, but if we were to go to a show, what do you think she would enjoy?
Take her to the matinee of Coppelia.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds great. Yeah. I love that you can come and you can bring your own food and drink. Or
you
just
can.
Food?
Thank you for mentioning that, because I think there's a little bit of confusion out there. But yes, you can bring your own food and drink. You can bring your cooler in. Yeah, so it's a really great opportunity.
Yeah.
I always love that matinee of Storybook Ballet because I actually stand on the terrace at the Pines Terrace, and I look down, and the number of little girls in tutus, many often with butterfly wings, twirling on the lawn. There's nothing like that.
Madeline would enjoy that.
That's incredible.
Jesse and I attended the Philadelphia Orchestra last year.
Okay.
And it was so lovely. We had our glass of wine, and I didn't realize all of the etiquette. You don't get up until the music stops, but everyone was so pleasant.
Yeah.
You're not in that same environment when you go to a Live Nation concert where everyone's like elbow to elbow. Everyone was sitting on blankets, and they had charcuterie and a glass of wine, and I felt so sophisticated. I had a great time.
It's a very chill but lovely experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing too, is that you can kind of choose your experience, right? Because if you're like a hardcore classical music fan and you want to be down there close by in the amphitheater, seated next to people who are also serious connoisseurs or whatever of the particular repertoire, you can have that experience. But you can also have a lovely experience on the lawn.
Yeah.
And there's certain nights that are more kid-friendly. And needless to say, opening night, the Tchaikovsky Spectacular, we have not only the cannon that fire for the 1812 overture, but fireworks and all that. So that's a great kids' night.
Yeah.
And of course, we have the amazing film nights. We have Harry Potter again this summer, and we have Back to the Future. And then for the, for the serious classical music fan, like the Verdi Requiem, which is one of the great works of classical music, is going to be conducted by Yannick Nézet-Séguin, who's the conductor of the beloved conductor of the Philadelphia Orchestra. Renee Fleming, big name, a singer who has been a Met favorite for decades, and she's just one of the great American singers, great singers of all time.
Yeah.
She'll be up here. Lots of straight-ahead classical music that'll be fabulous. But then we also have two very special evenings. Leve, who many people got to know last summer when they came to our Jazz Fest. She's early 20s.
Wow.
She's sort of the it girl right now of I don't know how many millions and millions of TikTok followers.
Wow.
And she's selling out arenas and stadiums. She came up here for the Jazz Fest last year just as she was breaking.
Yep.
And she's going to be doing a whole show with the Philadelphia Orchestra. We're already sold out in the amphitheater. We have still tickets available on the lawn, but that's going to be a big show.
Yes.
And then, of course, Cynthia Erivo.
I was waiting for you to mention that one.
Yeah, so we're really thrilled. We've been trying to get her for quite a few years, so it was a real coup to finally land a date with her, but also on the heels of all of this incredible coverage that she's been getting.
Yes.
So it's going to be a real honor and privilege to welcome her here.
That's a great one. I definitely have to go. I'm so excited. And they just released the trailer for part 2. I didn't think I was a musical person. I still am on the fence.
Oh, interesting.
But I loved Wicked. Even my 4-year-old sat still. Every time she had to use the restroom, we'd have to pause it. And this is like a 3-hour movie.
Wow.
So we're big Wicked fans now.
Okay,
so I'm looking forward to that. And I think she is just a spectacular singer.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to hear her perform with the Philadelphia Orchestra.
It's going to be amazing. I know in my bones that it's going to be one of the great concerts of all time at SPAC.
I'm so excited. We will have to be there. So classical music is amazing, and maybe some people don't know that. How do you get people to the orchestra, and how is it life-changing?
Well, you're talking to somebody who's lived a whole life in classical music, so it's profoundly affected my life in a myriad of ways. But I think that if you're curious about classical music, and for me, there is no music more profound, more emotionally charged, more uplifting, more just there's so much emotion behind it. There's so much history behind it. And not that you have to know history, you feel it in your bones.
Yeah.
For me, there's nothing like it. And the thing about it is there's so much different kinds of classical music. And that's why when we're programming the summer, we're trying to create a variety of classical music experiences. So if you're the kind of person who wants like a big, juicy sound and very deep, profound emotional responses to things, like go to the Verdi Requiem, for instance. It's like we're going to have more than 100 singers up on risers, the full orchestra. It will be so incredibly powerful. If you love the imaginative side of classical music, maybe go to The Planets. Holst's The Planets is one of the most popular classical music pieces, and it is based on imagery of the planets in our solar system.
Cool.
And you could just go, and particularly if you're sitting out on the lawn, you could just go for that piece, right? You don't have to feel like you have to sit there for the whole thing if you're not enjoying every single piece. But The Planets, it's a very accessible, very evocative, immersive.
Yeah.
So that would be a great one to take kids to, or for adults who are not sure, And then I would also just... If you're not sure you're ready for a complete full classical music program, there's a couple of ways to go. First of all, opening night, where there will be some full classical music pieces, but at the very end, the 1812 Overture, which is a very, oh gosh, I'm going to lose the words, but it is very full of emotion and percussion and ultimately the canon.
The canons, yes.
We have an actual, the enactors, the Revolutionary War enactors actually do a whole thing with live canon. And it just, I've heard it probably 200 times. It never ceases to just make you
feel. It's like heart pounding.
It's so heart pounding. It's like, I mean, it's kind of like the, like a final finish at the track or something. You're
fireworks.
Just like the fireworks, the finale.
Love that.
So that's one way to go. And then another way to go is to go to one of the films, because a lot of people get introduced to classical music through films. When you actually go to one of these things, you don't realize, watching a film on a screen with recorded music, how much the actual music, the soundtrack, affects your emotional reaction to the film.
100%.
And when you go there and you're watching the image on the screen, but you're also enveloped by all the sound, it is a very different experience.
Yeah.
Very emotional, very powerful, very immersive, to use your word is a perfect word for that. So sometimes people, and by the way, the soundtracks are written by really great contemporary American composers. So they're kind of like the Mozart or the Beethoven of our time, right? So you're hearing great music that's been written specially for film. And it's a great introduction, because if you go knowing, oh, I want to see that film again, or I want to see that film for the first time, but I want to go listening, really paying attention to the live music, it's a phenomenal experience.
I bet. There's two thoughts I have. One is how impressive it is to have all of these people playing instruments and singing live.
Yes.
Like when you go to any other concert, a lot of times it's that recorded music, so you're getting, quote unquote, the same experience.
Yeah.
But when you go to a live performance, it is professionals out there playing, and everything comes together to make this beautiful sound. And it's so... You have to go live, right? It's a totally different experience.
I'm really glad you said that, because, we've, since COVID, obviously, those of us who maybe weren't online as much, interacting, with performance and everything, that was our only way to have our diet of music and everything. And I think it was a real celebration when we could go back into the amphitheater and hear live music. And when you're hearing classical music, there's no auto-tune. People are just singing, There's no auto-tune for the orchestra musicians. You have musicians playing, who've spent their whole lives perfecting and mastering not only their individual instrument, but learning to play together. So it's like an organism. You think about like 100 instrumentalists on stage who live, like rehearsing every day together and learning how to listen to each other and play like one big breath. It's really extraordinary. So I think that we're very, very lucky to have the Philadelphia Orchestra. It was truly one of the great orchestras in the world.
Yes.
And they're up here for 3 whole weeks, which
That's
is incredible.
amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like classical music is somewhat having a moment. And I know it's kind of cheesy, but like Bridgerton, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that was super trendy. Everyone's watching it. And it's all modern music played on instruments.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, wow, that's just such a cool concept, because I think it breaks 2 barriers.
Yep.
You have the classical, traditional folks who like music.
Yep.
And then you have that new age, that young tween, young adult who's getting into it and hearing it from a whole different perspective.
Yeah, that's so right. I mean, there's so many films out there that you wouldn't even... Some of the classic soundtracks, like I think about, well, I hate to mention this film, but Apocalypse Now has some of the most powerful classical music. There's a Wagner piece in Apocalypse Now that without that music, it would not be the film that it is. People don't realize they're listening to classical music, because a lot of films will pull pieces from the classical canon of or the canon of classical music.
Yeah.
But classical music just it has everything in it. Every emotion, the whole panoply of human experience is in classical music.
You were talking about hearing something and having that visceral experience. we joked about this movie, but Last of the Mohicans. And
Yeah.
it has that whole history of the French Revolution here in the Adirondacks. But every time I hear that theme song,
Yeah.
I don't think it's classical, but that music, it's just like, oh my God, you feel like you're in a different place in time.
It's a signature. It's really a signature for the film.
It
you know,
is.
you hear the theme or you hear a certain piece of music or whatever, and it brings up those images again. So I think music is so powerful. It really permeates our lives in ways that we don't even know.
Yeah.
So,
I couldn't imagine a world without music.
totally.
So we talked about it in the beginning, but I think it's important to bring up again because it is very amazing what you're doing with the education program. But can you talk a little bit more about the work that's being done there and its impact on young people in the Capital Region?
Sure. I mean, there's so much to say on this front. You know, obviously, we all know that historically, when budgets are tight, one of the first things that goes in the school system is the arts. And so, when I was growing up and I was a little kid exposed to the piano, you could still see classical music was still represented on television. And in those days, great conductors like Leonard Bernstein or Eugene Orbandy or whatever, names that probably nobody is going to recognize listening to the to the show, or maybe a few will. But in those days, those were like massive stars in America's sort of popular or mainstream mentality. Like classical musicians had a place and a role in the mainstream mentality, and that doesn't really exist anymore, and it's too bad. And so we really feel this kind of missionary zeal to take the arts out into communities, bring the arts to kids who wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? And then you say, well, why is that important? Well, it's important on a number of levels, but first and foremost, again, getting back to the science around some of these things, that we know from years and years of study that engagement with the arts is absolutely imperative to cognitive development. There's so many studies on kids who are exposed to the arts excel, or have higher test scores, more well-adapted teenagers, making better life decisions. There's so much. I mean, I'd love to come in here someday and do like a whole hour with you on the health benefits of engagement with the arts. It is so important, not only for individual health, but what these arts experiences are teaching kids is how to be with each other, how to relate to each other through the arts, how to discover joy through the arts, how to go beyond themselves in the arts, how to collaborate with each other through the arts. And another big area of the focus of our education program is really making SPAC a place where the arts are literally barrier-free, right? So the emphasis on
everyone.
Totally, whether you're a kid with severe disabilities in a wheelchair, or you're a kid, or not just kids and adults with learning disabilities, developmental disabilities. We have a team of teachers and curriculum builders who that is their focus day in and day out, how to bring the arts to people who might not have access to it otherwise. And we know that we're changing lives, and that's some of the most important work that SPAC does.
I love that. Do you guys work with Cafe Lena? I know they do stuff like that too, bringing music to young adults.
Yeah,
and children.
so we have our own. So we do partner with them on other ways, but they've got their own amazing education programs. Theirs are very geared to what Cafe Lena does in terms of their genres and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, Cafe Lena, what a great example of another extraordinary arts organization that is constantly out there thinking about the community and bringing the arts to the community, bringing a kind of beneficent activism to our community. Again, like just really proud to be in a city where Cafe Lena is such an important factor.
You both are such icons. I think we wouldn't be Saratoga without SPAC and Cafe Lena. A lot of times we're called the horse racing city, or horse racing gets a lot of play. Yeah. And there's so much more to Saratoga.
Gosh, I'm so glad
than
you
horse
said
racing.
That. I'm just thank you for giving me that little opening to say that the only thing I don't love about Saratoga is that the signs coming in and out of the city say health, history, and horses. And we've been advocating to add the word harmony or some other word starting with H, because I think it's a disservice to the city for us not to be welcoming visitors who are coming through the city by saying this is also an incomparable capital of of the arts of all kinds, whether it's the Tang, UPH, Cafe Lena, SPAC, Yaddo, which has been an incredible
artist retreat.
Oh my God, for 100 years, some of the greatest names in the history of the arts.
I just saw a sign too that they're now open for the summer tours.
Yes,
which is amazing.
It's
you have
incredible.
to check it out. Did you catch the episode with Victoria? We did Mostly Modern, and she talked about the logo.
Interesting.
She actually has mocked one up, Health, History, Horses, Harmony, and she mentioned you and how you both have been such advocates for the arts. So
nice. Maybe
we'll be there.
Yeah. There are other advocates out there, so we're hoping to pull that energy together.
It's nice. I think getting all together will make it happen.
Yeah, I hope
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk about Spa Little Theater.
Yes.
The renovation of Spa Little Theater has created a lot of buzz. What will this transformation allow SPAC to do in terms of programming?
Yeah, so the Spa Little Theater, I want to start by just talking about what the Spa Little Theater is, because oddly enough, there are a lot of people in Saratoga who don't know what it is, right?
I honestly just learned about it in the last couple of years. So please enlighten us, because it's very important.
It's so important. So one of the things I discovered when I came up here, after I'd been here probably a year before I really started to understand, is that, SPAC is obviously in the middle of the 2,400-acre Spa State Park. And the natural question is, why is it called the Spa State Park? And we all know that the curative mineral springs have been a beacon that brought people here for centuries. And before that, the native peoples stewarded these curative waters, going back thousands and thousands of years. So the healing power in the city is really so important to remember that history and acknowledge, just the incredible healing properties of those waters that are, always present with us, and particularly when you're sitting there in the middle of the park, as we do. And so little by little, I started to understand the history, let's say, of the Hall of Springs. What is this incredible ornate building? Why was it built and when was it built and all this kind of stuff. So, the Hall of Springs is part of what's called now the Roosevelt campus, which includes the Hall of Springs, the building across from it, which is its more or less mirror image, and then the two bathhouses.
Yep.
And all those buildings were built in 1935, roughly, with money from then Governor Roosevelt.
Yep.
As I'm sure you know, he contracted polio during the polio epidemic. And so at the time, there was no vaccine, no cure, obviously, treatments, whatever. A lot of people were suffering from the effects of polio. And so hydrotherapy was one known, not cure, antidote, but helped the effects of polio. And so he gave the money to help develop one of America's first hydrotherapy spas, right? So you've got the two bathhouses, the Roosevelt Spa, which is still in operation. You've got the Hall of Springs, called that because in those days, in the early days, they would pipe the waters from the curative springs into the Hall of Springs so people could come there, take the waters for curative purposes.
Like a drink hall.
Yeah. So it was,
Very cool.
You could come in, have your luncheon, take your waters, go upstairs to private treatment rooms, and then across the way where the Spa Little Theater is, the Spa Little Theater was built more as a lecture hall. That whole building, which now includes Parks Admin and the theater, was actually a research center for hydrotherapy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so scientists and practitioners would gather, they would present papers on hydrotherapy. And so the lecture hall has a perfect natural acoustic, meaning you can stand in there and speak. You need no amplification because the acoustic is so perfect for the spoken word, right? So that was 1935, and the building has kind of come in and out of use over the years. It's been jury-rigged a little bit to allow performance to take place there.
Yeah.
And there is a history going back decades of SPAC presenting theater and dance and music. And then over the years, that tapered off a lot. We would only present Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center there in the summer. Saratoga performed there in the summer, but there was never really a robust year-round presence of the arts in the venue. So during COVID, the venue closed, obviously. It's never been renovated, really. So at any rate, in 2022, our good friend at Parks, Elaine Balchinian, had called and said, would you guys consider coming in? Let's breathe new life into the Spa Little Theater and start presenting there year-round.
I love
and that was really music to our ears, no pun intended, because we've always, even from spring of 2017, we began presenting year-round. Partly through partnership with Cafe Lena was our first year-round co-presenting things with Sarah downtown. So it had always been our dream to have our own year-round venue. So we started programming in fall of 22, world music, jazz, theater, dance. We've had so many sold-out shows. There's such a hunger by Saratoga audiences to come for these sorts of presentations, which by and large are things that you can't hear anyplace else in Saratoga, and in certain instances can't hear anywhere else in the capital region.
Yeah.
So we've spent a couple of years now programming it year-round, having companies come in and out, the audiences coming in and out. And through doing all that, we discovered every challenge, both small and large, that there is with a building that was never really built as a theater that's now almost 100 years old.
Almost 100 years old.
So it's been our dream to embark upon a true renovation of the Spa Little Theater. And so we announced our 60th anniversary campaign back in May with the primary purpose to raise the $12 million we need to renovate the Spa Little Theater. And so we're really close. We're meant to close the theater at the beginning of this September for a year and reopen Q4 of next year, just in time to finish celebrating our 2026 60th anniversary. And as in the whole, what we were talking earlier about all the collaborators, SEDC and Discover, et cetera, we've got an amazing team that we're working with. First and foremost, Mike Finney and his team doing the design of this renovation. It's just been a
Finney
joy.
Design Group.
We love them too. Such a great group of people with vision to work with. And then our partners at La Chase, they've been fantastic.
Now here's a quick message from our sponsor. Want to win 4 lawn tickets to Back to the Future in concert at SPAC? It's an epic family night with a live orchestra, DeLorean replica, face painting, games, and free ice cream. Here's how to enter. Send us the secret word time machine in a message on Instagram at Destination Saratoga Podcast.
So we have a really great group of people that we're working with, including New York State Parks, who have been an unbelievable partner of ours, literally for the last 9 years, that we've been able to do so many wonderful things with them.
That's amazing.
I mean, when you think about it, how many performing arts organizations can say that they have a profound and transformative relationship with New York State Parks?
Right?
This is, again, another unique thing that happens here in Saratoga. It's amazing.
We're so fortunate. Yeah. We're just so lucky.
Oh, my goodness.
I feel like a broken record, but no matter what you're interested in, whether it's classical music, dance, opera, shows, Live Nation concerts, horse racing, great food and shopping, we have it all.
Hiking. I mean, think about how close we are. Here was another thing that blew me away when I moved up here. That we're 45 minutes from 6 million acres of Adirondack parkland. Who knew? Most people do not know that.
The largest national park in the country.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
Nobody knows that. I had never even heard the words Lake George before I moved up here.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's how much, that's why, I've got this whole proselytizing. I'm a North Carolinian, so proselytizing comes naturally to me. But I just came up here and just love this place so much. I want everybody to be able to experience it. And I do want to, it's like we're talking about cultural tourism. I think that The fact that this city is talking about cultural tourism is so important because, we talk about this so much. Daryl, I'm sure, has heard me say it 100 times or more, that the cultural tourist spends 60% more than the average leisure tourist.
I believe it.
And that's so important for our economy. And I also just think, when I first came up here, having come from the for-profit side, I know how much money is in arts and entertainment. But I also know that in a community, the arts is an economic it's an economic driver. And so in the early days, I was making the case to people that, SPAC's economic impact in the city was considerable. And people were like, it's the arts. What are,
Yeah.
Well, in fact, 3 years ago, Saratoga County commissioned a study from Camoin & Associates.
I remember this.
Right? So SPAC generates $105 million in economic impact every year in Saratoga.
Amazing.
It's a huge number.
It really is.
So I think that that's just what SPAC is doing. I mean, when you think aggregately of all the organizations in town, including like Beekman Street Arts and all the other arts organizations, Saratoga Arts. I mean, it's just the wealth of arts and culture here is really staggering.
It really is. And I agree with you obviously you have statistics behind it, but I do feel like people who come through cultural tourism spend more because they want all of those, I can't think of the word, nice things, right?
Yeah.
You want a great meal. You want a great show. You want to stay at a nice hotel.
Yeah.
It's all about the experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because you can get all of those things here.
Well, and in my own personal story before, as I mentioned early in our conversation, I'd never been to Saratoga. Now that is peculiar that I worked in the arts world for so many years and never came here because I had no idea what was going on here, right?
Yeah.
Which is why when I got here, had this missionary zeal to really market, cultural tourism marketing for people to know.
Yeah.
But so let me just play that out in real life. Every summer, I lived in the city. Every summer, I would be thinking what do I want to do for my summer vacation? My little time that I'm going to get away from the craziness of my job. Where would I go? Southern Vermont.
Oh, wow.
Why did I go there?
Passed right by us.
Because I didn't know. And why did I go to Southern Vermont? I wanted to go someplace where I could stay in a nice B&B, take my dog. I wanted to go someplace where I could have hiking, Green Mountains, biking, kayaking, whatever. But I also wanted to be near a great bookstore, maybe a little theater, some great food, blah, blah, blah. So I'd go to Southern Vermont. I would go because of the Green Mountains and the Battenkill, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I went there because Northshire Bookstore, the home of Northshire, is in Manchester, Vermont.
Yes.
So I was going there for a bookstore,
interesting.
right? And so when I came here for my interview in June of 2016, and I walked into town literally not knowing anything. I had no idea what was here, what was in the city. And so I walked into town. And the first thing I was going, down Broadway. I walked past Congress Park.
Yep.
I'm a big garden and, nature person. So
Yeah.
first, I'm seeing this spectacular park.
Yes.
And then I get to what I now know to be Philo Street. I take a right. Now I see Lyrical Ballad Bookstore.
Yes.
Note to self. Okay. Take a left on what I now know to be Putnam. Ended up having a fabulous meal, and Mio Posto, alas, no longer with us, but had a great meal.
Yep.
Walked to what I now know to be Caroline Street.
Yeah.
Took a left. Now I'm hearing live music coming out of multiple doors. I'm going, live music scene too. Get to the top of the hill, Broadway. Now I see all this incredible historic preservation. And so kudos to Sam Bosshart, who is another one of our amazing, influencers, shapers, advocates.
Saratoga Preservation Foundation.
Amazing work, what she and her organization do. Because I got to the top of the hill, I was like, this is amazing, right? And then I take the left, and I see Northshire Books. I'm like, why was I going to Manchester all those years? If I'd only known everything that was here in Saratoga, there was no reason for me to go there. And I could have come here and I could have gone up to the Adirondacks to hike, and I could have gone to Lake George now that I know what that is. And I could have gone to SPAC, and I could have gone to Cafe Lena, and I could have done all these things, but I didn't know about it. And once I started to understand everything that was here, I thought, there literally is no place on earth like this.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
Saratoga Springs brought Elizabeth Sobol out of retirement. Love that.
There you go.
That's amazing. For someone who's never experienced SPAC before, what would you hope their first visit feels like?
Oh, man. Well, I do hope that they come in from Route 9 and have the drive down the Cathedral of Pines, Avenue of the Pines, and I will pray for them that the traffic's not too bad. Come to a SPAC show, not a Live Nation show for your first time, so you have that sort of unadulterated experience. And then I hope for them that it's a beautiful night.
Yeah.
Luckily, we have had, knock on whatever surfaces are here,
No
for
more
good
rain.
luck, about, for good weather. But even when it's, doubtful weather, the amphitheater, there are plenty of places to congregate, and to be out of the rain, let's say. But most nights are beautiful. We've just had so much good luck on weather.
Yeah.
And to have that experience that I mentioned in the beginning of like that perfect confluence of gorgeous nature, to be out on the lawn under a canopy of stars with extraordinary music, washing over you, being in community with so many incredible people, many of whom you may know, or if you're a tourist here, you're not going to know anybody, but you are going to feel like you are part of our community, because that is part of what's beautiful about Saratoga, that sense of community that extends to anybody who comes. And I think it's just a really beautiful expression of humanity that we all need today. So
an experience for all the senses. It's definitely visceral, as you had said. I love that. Okay, my last question.
Yes.
What's your favorite way to spend a day at SPAC, whether it's behind the scenes or sitting in the audience?
Wow. For certain shows, for certain classical shows, I will be in the amphitheater for the Verdi Requiem, because that's one where I want to be close to the orchestra and feel the wash of sound coming over. But in general, I do love kind of just being a little bit of a phantasm, like walking around, getting the sense, like looking at what people have on their charcuterie boards, or looking at the little girls with their tutus and their butterfly wings on, just walking in amongst people, overhearing bits of conversation. And my most favorite experience at SPAC is at the very end of a very powerful performance. I think back to when we did Beethoven's Ninth Symphony as we were coming out of COVID. And just the overpowering sense of uplift and hope and joy that we had together after so long, to have that experience of sharing that beautiful moment with so many people. There's nothing like that.
Daryl says a lot that, we have Zoom and we have all of these virtual meetings now, but nothing will replace face-to-face.
Totally.
And that's meetings, that's music, that's human interaction. We're not meant to be behind screens.
No, we're not.
And I think that it's very touching what you said about that. I'm sure people were in tears, because it's normalcy, it's togetherness, it's emotional in so many ways, and that's what we're here for. Yeah.
It's really a privilege, It's a privilege to live here. It's a privilege to work at SPAC. It's really just a privilege to be part of this community.
Oh, I love that. Well, I really appreciate your time today. I feel like I've learned so much, especially as someone who grew up right down the road. I haven't gotten very far, but it's been wonderful.
Likewise. Thank you so much for the great conversation.
Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing for the community.
Thank you.
Excellent work.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please like, subscribe, rate, or review our show. Thank you.
This episode is sponsored by Finney Design Group. This podcast is brought to you by Discover Saratoga, the official tourism promotion agency of Saratoga County, produced by Bright Sided Media, with video by Iron Glass Productions, and special thanks to Lift Marketing for their continued support.